Hi everyone, my name is Seb Cecil and I'm this year's Honors College Senate Director. And I'm extremely excited to introduce this year's Fall Convocation keynote speaker, Patrick Woodyard, Nisolo founder and CEO. After studying global economics, business, and Spanish at the Croft Institute and Sally McDonald Barksdale Honors College at the University of Mississippi, Patrick moved to Peru to work in microfinance where he met shoemakers whose reality of low wages and unsafe working conditions reflected much of what the fashion industry experiences today. Dedicated to demonstrating 100% living wages and 0% net carbon, Patrick founded Nisolo, with the vision of offering customers comfortable, functional, and high-quality products, yet manufacturing them in a manner that champions the well-being of people and the planet in the process. Today, Nisolo supports the livelihood of over 1,500 individuals throughout Peru, Mexico, Brazil, the US, and Kenya. And while primarily an e-commerce brand, is carried by Nordstrom, Anthropologie, Madewell, Bloomingdale's, and other international stockists. In the retail industry, Nisolo has become Remake's #1 brand for transparency and sustainability, a top 10 performing B Corp, climate neutral certified, and recently, a finalist in Fast Company's World Changing Ideas competition for the Nisolo Sustainability Facts label, which publishes 200 data points tied to impact on people and planet for every Nisolo product made. At Ole Miss, Patrick co-founded and led several organizations, graduated summa cum laude, and was inducted into the Student Hall of Fame. Among other accolades, Patrick has received the Outstanding Young Alumni Award and has been named a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, an innovator changing the South, and a Global Accelerator Entrepreneur by the United Nations. Patrick also leads Nisolo and happily resides in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife and children. Please help me welcome Patrick Woodyard.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing out there? I want to start by first thanking the existing administration of the Honors College for allowing me to share with you this evening. Thank you, Dr. Skerlock. When she asked me to speak, I said, okay, what would you like for me to talk about? And she said, well, why don't you talk a little bit about Nisolo and the work you're doing there, and if there's anything that might happen to do with your time at the Honors College, you can share about that too. Well, I hope you'll learn walking away tonight that my time at the Honors College had everything to do and has everything to do with my work at Nisolo. Before diving in, I also want to thank past and present faculty and administration for the incredible ways you impacted me, so many students that were here before this group, and everyone that's walked through the Honors College doors. Finally, I'd like to thank the Barksdale family for their incredibly generous gift to support everything we're seeing here. And I hope that as you guys look at this, I know Markiva could probably do the math on this. Who knows how many thousands of students have come through this that you've directly impacted. And I hope that when you watch this, you'll think and realize that it's not just about those thousands of students or professors or faculty that have come through here. It's the thousands and tens of thousands and millions of lives, those people who you've affected because of your gift and the impact you're having on them. So I want to just give one more round of applause for faculty, existing and past, and the Barksdale family. Thank you. Not all that long ago, I was sitting in your seats at an Honors College Convocation, my very first one. Tonight, I'm going to share about my life journey that led me to the Honors College, the most important lesson that I learned while I was here, and how that lesson has transformed the trajectory of my life ever since. There are 3 messages that I want you to walk away with when you leave here. First, living our lives with purpose beyond our individual self-interest is not only what matters most, but it's also what makes us happiest in life. Secondly, bring you into the purpose behind Nisolo. I want you to walk away with a better understanding of how broken the fashion industry is today, how it has something to do with every single one of us because we all wear clothes, and of course, what each of us can do to change it. Finally, I want you to leave encouraged, especially students, to lean into your education at the Honors College, recognizing that what you're learning is going to shape your future in ways you simply cannot imagine today. With that said, let's back up a few years. In my younger years growing up in my family, we had what we needed, but sometimes not much more than that. I remember most of the arguments I would overhear in my house centering around money in some capacity or another. In part, this drove me to make good grades in high school. And I arrived at college pretty focused on academics, but with not much more of a purpose other than getting a job one day that would keep me from having to worry about money. Thinking it might be the simplest path to financial security, I started out my freshman year as a business major, but at the end of the year, despite maintaining a 4.0 and feeling like I was on the right path, I realized there was a really deep emptiness inside of me. I looked around and I saw so much privilege and wealth in the Ole Miss student body, and I saw tons of people who, like me, hadn't lived enough life yet to start thinking about people other than themselves. Deep down, I knew there had to be more to life than making good grades, to get a good job, to ensure financial security. So I started searching, not really knowing what I was looking for. Soon after, I decided to join the Honors College, and slowly things began to change. You see, a curriculum was presented to me that wildly elevated three things. First, my awareness of self, and who I was. Secondly, my awareness and acceptance of the other, who's different from me, even within my own community. And thirdly, an awareness of my own global citizenship on this planet. While at the Honors College, I vividly remember seeing a poster on the second floor of the Croft building that I felt represented this curriculum quite well. So I'm going to share it with you tonight. In theory, get some tech support backstage. Okay, well, while we're figuring that out, I'll describe it to you. Essentially, it is a picture of the globe, but in the center of that globe, there's only one country, the United States. And underneath that globe, one simple statement is there. It says, "We are not alone." Look, not yet. There we go. Thanks, guys. Okay. Although we as Americans often think this way, and although as individuals in our own communities, we tend to do the same thing sometimes, we all know that the world, in fact, does not revolve around us. I found myself inspired by what I was learning, but on a campus so full of distraction, I remained tempted to confuse what really matters. And before long, I found myself in a very clear philosophical fork in the road. I distinctly remember one night in particular where I envisioned a 10-second frame of my future self. In one of them, I was leading a board meeting in the top of a high-rise in New York, and in the other, I was living and working in a field in rural East Africa. What's it going to be, Patrick? Conformity to a world that's all about you, or living for a purpose above and beyond your own self-interest? Thanks to winning the Barksdale Award and the support of faculty like Dr. Deborah Young, not long after that dilemma, I found myself literally in East Africa. Spent a few summers there, helping to equip the people I met with access to better education and job creation support. Believing in the power of the nonprofit and for-profit sectors working together to solve the world's most challenging problems, after graduating, I decided to take a job in Peru, working in microfinance, where I focused on helping women gain access to small loans to grow their businesses. That opportunity led me to this neighborhood in northern Peru, where I met Doris, who's pictured here walking down the street outside of her home, one of our microfinance clients who had a small business she ran. When visiting with Doris one day, I heard all this background noise in her house, and she let me know, she said, my husband's a shoemaker, do you want to meet him? I said, sure. So I turned the corner in their house, and I saw her husband, William, sitting on the ground hand-making what looked like a pair of Italian dress shoes. After a few visits with William and Doris, I learned that William had been treated so poorly in the way that he was paid and the working conditions for 13 years in a factory that he had recently decided, even though he had no money, no savings, no plan, 4 children to feed, that he would be better off selling shoes on the streets than going back to that factory again. The devastating story that William shared with me made me recognize that I'd never thought about the people who made the clothes or shoes that I wore up until that point in my life. After a little bit of research, I realized I wasn't the only one. Learning that the fashion industry was one of the worst industries in the entire world when it came to human rights abuses, one of the most pollutive industries in the entire world. I dropped my plans to go to business school and decided to start a brand holistically focused on the well-being of people and planet. 11 years ago, almost to the exact date, right here in Oxford, in a packed-out powerhouse near the square, filled with hundreds of family and friends, professors, some of which are probably here tonight, Nisolo was born. With a small loan, that's it, the powerhouse. With a small loan, a borrowed horse trailer full of shoes, we launched our e-commerce website on a road trip and set out on a journey to take on giants in pursuit of changing the fashion industry. Not long after we got started, I had the opportunity to support a friend who was creating an extremely powerful film about the fashion industry called The True Cost. I highly encourage you to watch the entire movie, but tonight I'm going to share a 2-minute clip because it drives home the purpose behind Nisolo so clearly, on one hand, but also it brings to life what I grappled with as a student on campus. What happens when we as humans live our lives focused only on our own self-interest? It's a bit intense, but I think this audience can handle it. I think we got a battery issue or something on this thing. Okay, here we go.
We communicate who we are through clothing. It is fundamentally a part of what we wish to communicate about ourselves.
We used to have a system, a fashion system. That has absolutely nothing to do with the fashion industry today. It has been reinvented.
It's based on materialism. The problem is that comes at a really high price.
Garment factory collapsed, killing more than 1,000. Clashes between clothes factory workers and drivers.
Last November, 112 people were killed in another major factory fire. 30,000
Garment workers in Bangladesh will gain the right for cheap clothing.
Well, the promise of globalization was that it was going to be a win-win, that consumers in the rich world would get cheaper goods and people in the poorer parts of the world would get jobs, and that those jobs would give them an opportunity to work their way out of poverty.
This enormous, rapacious industry that is generating so much profit, why is it that it is unable to support millions of its workers properly?
The actual business model is completely unsustainable. Unless you change that model, you can't change anything.
When everything is concentrated on making profits, what you see is that human rights, the environment, workers' rights get lost.
My God, we can do better than this.
probably have your attention now. I want you to think about the phone in your pocket right now, the clothes you have on, and the car you drove most recently. From megabytes to miles per hour, we know a lot about the products we buy. But why is it that we know almost nothing about the hundreds of hands they touch or the thousands of miles they travel before they get to us? While we as consumers remain in the dark, our very own dollars fund broken industries around the world today. In the fashion industry, this lack of transparency continues to worsen three major problems. People-wise, human rights abuses abound, and less than 5% of the 100 million people making clothing around the world are paid a living wage that covers their most basic needs. In fact, experts estimate that 93% of fashion brands today do not pay a living wage. And not only are 95% of the people who make the clothes we wear held in systemic poverty, but 75% of them are women between the ages of 18 and 24. Sound familiar? Planet-wise, fashion is one of the top 5 most polluting industries in the world and is responsible for up to 10% of the world's carbon footprint, impacting climate change more than international aviation and shipping combined. Shockingly, 95% of what we wear can actually be reused or recycled, but as we know, almost all of it ends up in landfills. Thirdly, in most recent years, being green and sustainable has become on trend and desired by consumers, and brands everywhere are now claiming they're sustainable even when they're not. Greenwashing, defined simply as spending more time, money, and effort marketing your sustainability than actually on your sustainability efforts, has become the norm. To address these problems, at Nisolo, we've built a 5-pillar framework across people, planet, transparency, accountability, and collaboration. This is a screenshot from our website. You can go read all about it. But here's the deal. Even though we've committed to 100% living wages, and we even publish our very lowest wages publicly on our website at every one of our manufacturing locations around the world, even though we're already operating as a carbon neutral brand, even though we've sought just about every third-party certification we can get, even though we've pushed for better legislation on the policy and legal front, and even though we've gone so far to share our own intellectual property and partner with our own direct competitors in the fight for this change, this third problem related to greenwashing and false advertising has the potential to undermine everything. And it's one of the reasons the industry today is worse off than it's ever been before. This is because over the last few years, we've continued to see brand after brand adopt our sustainability language, but very few brands adopting our practices. And we recognize that if consumers cannot distinguish between a brand that is sustainable and one that is not in any industry, market demand can never force these industries to change. As a brand founded with the sole purpose of changing an industry, this problem forced us to take a huge step back a few years ago and work on something even more radical. We asked ourselves, when else in history has something been introduced that changed the trajectory of an entire industry? Designed to encourage food companies to produce healthier food and consumers to make better choices, the Nutrition Facts label has increased transparency in the food and beverage industry for over 30 years. Yet we found the fashion industry was nowhere close to anything like this. We decided it was time for the transparency we get for the food we put in our bodies to exist for the clothes we put on our bodies. So we spent a few years analyzing over 30 of the top sustainability assessments from around the world and compiled their most important parts, as well as things that we felt were missing, into one consumer-facing label. Leveraging the research of these sustainability experts, we created the Nisolo Sustainability Facts label to empower consumers to make better choices and brands like us to improve their overall sustainability efforts. With 10 categories across people and planet, backed by 200 different public-facing data points, The sustainability facts label is one of the most comprehensive, if not the most, and digestible in just about any industry seen to date. 92 data points make up people within the 5 categories of wages and payment, health and safety, women's rights and governance, gender equality and empowerment, and healthcare and benefits. 108 data points make up planet with 5 categories across carbon footprint, raw materials integrity and durability, processing and manufacturing, packaging and distribution, and post-use product life cycle. What happens to our products when we're done with them? Today, a product specific, meaning each individual product with its own 200 data points. Sustainability facts label, as well as a QR code that links directly to those data points, can be found on all Nisolo products. At Nisolo, we envision a day when everything we buy as consumers has a label on it that clearly articulates how our purchases impact people and planet. Can you imagine what the world would look like if that were the case? Just like in the food and beverage industry, consumer consciousness would begin to drive better choices, forcing supply chains like the one we saw in that video to transform forever. Is there anybody in the crowd tonight who wants to see this version of tomorrow? Let me hear from you. Let's talk about a few quick things we can do to support this reality. First off, buy less. The most sustainable thing we can do as a society is buy and produce less. So let's take care of the things we already own. Second is shop responsibly. When you do need to buy something, support brands realistically focused on sustainability that are actually using metrics and certifications and not broad sweeping claims. Thirdly, build on this label. There are a lot of smart people in this room. We've open sourced all of the technology and methodology behind this because we want people to build on it. If you know how to take this to another industry or expand it further into the fashion industry or have any ideas, you can email me directly at patrick@nisolo.com. Fourth, share our label. If you have a platform or a following and you want to share this, go for it. If you need more information, there's my email address. Each of us can share this label with our favorite brands as well as perhaps some of the most offending brands out there and push this level of transparency in the industry. Shoot them an email, comment on their social media. You'll get their attention. Lastly, please spread the word by sharing this label with your community. The truth is, awareness is the first step toward change of any kind, and this is where I'd like to ask for your help tonight. I want you to think about this for a second. I kind of counted the audience while I was sitting there. There's over 1,000 people in this room right now. Markiva, you can check my math on this one, but considering the fact that there are probably some rising influencers in this student body with pretty solid followings, I would have to guess that our average social media following per person in this room is probably around 1,000 or more people. Let's multiply those. That's 1 million people right now that we can impact with a few clicks of a button with our thumbs on our phones. With that said, I want to invite you to take your phones out and take a picture of this right now. Whether you want to share this on social media this evening or just have a picture to look back on and remember this evening, you can grab a quick shot. If you want to learn more, there's our social media and the sustainability page where you can read all about it. But as you look back on this photo, I want you to remember that as consumers, we vote with our dollars for the world we want to see. Let you put your phones away after that shot, and I'm going to close with a few quick final thoughts. If I could go back and talk to myself freshman year, this is what I'd say. Patrick, there's more to life than focusing on yourself and making money to meet your needs, financial security. Allowing money to be your core motivator, even if for financial security, may lead you in the wrong direction and likely is not a clear path to happiness. And because my skeptical 19-year-old self would write that off as touchy-feely and not believe it, I then say, no, listen, it's true. In fact, not that long ago, a group of Princeton PhD psychologists analyzed the Gallup poll results of 450,000 Americans and actually found out the exact salary level where emotional well-being plateaus. And guess what? It's not $20 million a year. It's not $5 million a year. It's not $1 million a year. It's not even $100,000 a year. It's $75,000 in annual salary. They found that from that point forward, emotional well-being does not increase as salary increases. There's a good chance all of you, if you're sitting in these seats, will earn that one day in your career, no matter your career choice. So don't let making money or your own self-interest be the main driver, because this will ultimately fail you. And listen, I know some of you are already on the path to pretty lucrative careers, so I want to be clear that there's nothing wrong with making money. The point is, don't forget the far more important why behind the career choice that you make. If you're pre-med, great. The world desperately needs doctors who remain driven by helping patients and not just meeting revenue targets. If you're pre-law, amazing. The world needs lawyers who are focused on solving complex conflicts and not just filling up hours. If you're public policy, never forget the why behind why you chose policy in the first place. As we know, you will be tempted. If you're a professor or administrator here tonight, take a step back and remember what's making you most fulfilled in your work. I guarantee it's not about you. And even if you're bussing tables at a restaurant right now to help make ends meet like I did in my very first job, then bust the hell out of those tables for the way it makes people feel to come to a clean table and not just for the paycheck. Doesn't matter the job, doesn't matter the compensation. What matters is what the Honors College teaches right here. Awareness of self, awareness and acceptance of the other who is different from you, perhaps right in your own community, and awareness of your own global citizenship. What matters is recognizing that you students have been blessed with gifts that are meant to be used in far greater ways than your own self-interest. I'll end with this. Nisolo, loosely translated, means not alone in Spanish. I gave the brand that name to remind everyone who interacts with it that we're not alone, and that our choices as consumers have a massive impact on people like William and Doris, their children, and on the planet we call home. Above all the incredible skill sets and knowledge I gained at this university, I'm most grateful for the way the Sally McDonald Barksdale Honors College taught me that I'm not alone on this planet. This lesson transformed the trajectory of my life, and as a result, changed the life of many others since then too. It all starts right here, right now. While here on this campus, what matters most is getting your head right and your heart right before going out into the world and creating the change each of you has been destined to create. Thank you.
We have had an incredible night. I want to thank all of our speakers. When we were backstage, somebody said, you have a lot of people on the program. But I said, everybody I chose is smart and time conscious, and I expect us to be out in 90 minutes, and we will be out in less than 90 minutes. So thank you to all of our speakers. Two last thank yous. We have some staff members who are in the audience whose names I did not call, but they've been crucial in making this happen tonight. At this time, I'm going to ask that Penny Leaton will stand along with Rachel Coleman and Nakia Carruthers. Let them see who you are. I could not find the Barksdales when I was speaking. Everybody saw I kept looking in the wrong direction. Mr. Barksdale said that on this night he did not want to make remarks, but I think we're here tonight because we do want to see him and tell him thank you, and also to Donna Barksdale and to their children. So Barksdale family, at this time, please stand so we can at least acknowledge that you are in the house and we see who you are. Your legacy of giving has taught us how to give. Your work has made us work harder. When I was working to try to prepare for tonight, I found out that Jim Barksdale's name is James Love Barksdale. You couldn't have a better name. Thank you for your love. Thank you for depositing something in us that will continue to give generations after we're all gone. Thank you, Barksdale family. Thank you, sir.